Yeah, I'm shooting an angle here. So, today I'm going to be talking about big cats. And I think a lot about big cats because in a past age, I would be a guy who went after big cats. But in today's age, big cats are actually afraid of people. And it's not always been like this. This has not always been. It's been the exception to the rule that big cats are, in fact, intimidated by people. And big cats are the prey. Now, in the past, this has not been the case. As I said, it's been the case that big cats are actually the predators and humans are the prey. And I've collected testimony from, we're going to angle here, see the camera angle, collected testimony from guys whose grandfathers had to run from big cats because I've talked about this before and a lot of people don't understand this, but predators can tell an armed human from an unarmed human. Another story that underlines this point is Little House on the Prairie. There's a story about how the guy is going through the big woods of Wisconsin and he ends up being chased through the woods by a panther because he doesn't take his rifle to the store with him. So his horse is intimidated. Horses are naturally intimidated by big cats. And he's, of course, scared. And the panther is literally chasing him through the woods, stalking him. And so this is very interesting. There's many cases of this, and people forget about this. People have forgotten because the oral history is gone for the most part, aside from a few people like myself who collect data on such things, collect these old stories or read these old stories. We've lost the oral and written history on the subject of big cats. And so people don't even really believe in cats anymore. People don't see them. The idea of the leopard being the natural enemy of the chimpanzee or the monkey or the proto-human, the early man's fear of the leopard, the big cat in the trees, is now, it's largely gone from mankind. It's very interesting, and I bring this up for a reason. It's very interesting that it's all gone. We don't see this anymore. And I bring this up for a reason. We'll talk about this in detail specifically because at this time you see big cats for what they are today and not what they were. And what they were, as I said, were a very fearsome predator. Today, they're not like that anymore. They're pretty much, they're a non-entity in society. They're not a big deal. So, I think it's very significant the white race is like that in a lot of ways. You go back to the story, and this kind of ties everything together. Nathan Bedford Forrest. It's another story. I guess there were lots of stories there, and they're not just stories. I mean, there's documented fact. And at one time there were skins, and then there were necklaces of claws and so forth and so on as relics to prove that these things had happened. And in the case of Nathan Bedford Forrest, there's a story of his mother and sisters and younger brothers being attacked by a panther in Tennessee. And going back even further, there's a story of a mother panther attacking General Andrew Jackson's, or President Andrew Jackson's, mule or horse, and she has a young colt, which makes her even more prey. There's one of my horses there. she's a prey to even greater prey, a nursing mother, and her young one is greater prey to the panther, who apparently also has a cub with her and is stalking this horse and its colt with her cub. And what happens is that so Jackson ends up shooting the mother panther and tomahawking her cub because they're attacking his horse. So that's one story from back in the Tennessee days. And the other one is, of course, Bedford Forest, as I mentioned. As a very young man going after this panther that's attacked his mother, this mountain lion that's attacked his mother, it was probably a black panther, and he goes and hunts the panther down using his hounds and trees it, and he can't get, in the morning, chances are, before long, he's either going to shoot that panther, and he's only got one shot to do it, or that panther's going to try to escape by jumping amongst the hounds and trying to just get out of the tree. If that means attacking him, if it means attacking the dogs, it's going to do that. So he has to wait at night until he can get enough light, dawn's light, to kill the panther, and he only has one shot to do it, which he manages to do. But the point of these stories is that so great was the fear of panthers at this time. They were a dominant animal. People were afraid of them. People, they weren't just afraid of them attacking their livestock, they were afraid for their lives as well. These panthers had no fear of humans, partially because they preyed a lot on the Indians as well, and there were a lot of people who were not aware of the whole structure, and so they got preyed on as well. But overall, it's very interesting to note the effect of these panthers. Like I said, they were a formidable opponent for a while. Then they got killed, and they got basically hunted into extinction because of their crimes against humans and livestock and so forth and so on. So that was pretty much the end of the panther until they were reintroduced to manage the deer. Now the panther, from what I've seen, people wonder about man-to-man, hand-to-hand combat with panther, and I've seen the yellow mountain lions hold a white-tailed deer, the kind that's too heavy for Breck to lift. That kind of deer, he can shoot the deer and then he's stuck because he can't pick the deer up. What's he going to do with the deer? He's got to field dress the deer where it lies because he can't pick the deer up and move it. He can't hang it up, unless he gets help. He can get somebody to lift the deer up for him, even if it only weighs like 150 pounds. That's too much for Breck. And if you remember, all these years on all these forum threads, people have been talking about physical culture and getting shape and getting strong and so on, and all these basics, and in all that time Breck just got fatter and fatter and fatter and weaker and weaker and weaker. The whole time he had the opportunity to avail of himself of all the knowledge. I learned a ton of ton of information from all these people posting on these forums about fitness and just general health and well-being. It's enabled me over the years to maintain a level of fitness. But no, not Breck. Breck got fatter and fatter, and even if he's not fat strong, he's fat weak. So the point of the matter is that a grown man can lift a 150-pound deer. Now I've seen a mountain lion carry a 150-pound deer in its mouth and run. That maybe not very fast, but it can traverse rough terrain with a 150-pound deer in its mouth, in its jaws. So that'll give you an idea, I think, of the strength of the mountain lion. So you're going to have a very tough time. I'm sure it can be done. It can be killed by a man, especially a man armed with a knife or some other crude weapon if he doesn't have a gun. But it's very difficult to do. So I thought that was very interesting overall. And again, it goes along with the fate of the white race, because yes, you have this ultimate predator, the panther, at one time, facing down with a great white warrior Nathan Bedford Forrest, and this is the way that Forrest proves himself as a young man, by going after the panther that's attacked his family, attacked his mother, and he only has one shot to kill this panther, literally one shot with a probably a flintlock rifle, which means that he has not only that one shot, he has to keep his powder dry in the moisture of the night in order to enable him to get that simple one shot off, and he's able to pull that off through nerve and strength and toughness and so forth and so on. To just wait all night, have the courage to wait all night, knowing that your panther is in that tree waiting to spring. So this is the kind of white man you don't see anymore. You see the white man like Breck, Breck, and you see the satisfaction in Breck. Breck is very satisfied with where he is in life. And you see this with a lot of middle-aged guys. They're very insecure, and they feel like the best way of managing their insecurity is through smoke satisfaction, or looking down at the younger men, or looking down at I can't say looking down at the older men, but definitely looking at them with derision. In their position, they are full of themselves. And you see this with the white race in general, too, because the white race is so full of itself that it looks down on itself. That's how full of themselves they are. And it's very interesting, because what emerges from this picture is the situation, as I said, with the white race in general. It's like the panther, they've become mythical. People talk about polar bear hunting now, and to a sense, people remember the polar bear because of the ice caps. People say, "Oh, the polar bear's ice caps melting." I would guess, this is my theory, like Lewis and Clark killing that giant grizzly bear. I would imagine this is not the first time the polar bears have come south and mixed with the grizzly bears, accentuating their size by breeding with them. So the point of the matter is that when people talk about polar bear hunting, and the only reason they know about polar bears is because the media talks about the ice caps melting and the polar bears moving south to join the grizzly bears and so forth and so on, and the polar bear's habitat becoming endangered. So somehow that being prominent in the media, which promulgates that picture, enables the poor ghetto blacks to at least know what a polar bear is, so they can talk about polar bear hunting. But even though blacks in the past used the term the black panther, the symbol of the black panther, I would say for the most part they don't even know much about the black panther, and so consequently they would never say black panther hunting. It wouldn't make sense anyway. If they're hunting white people, you wouldn't say we're going to go black panther hunting. We're hunting white people. We're going to go hunt mountain lions. We're hunting white people, because they don't view whites as predators, and they don't necessarily view polar bears as predators, but they just they know they have the potential to be dangerous, so that's a big deal. The polar bears have the potential to be dangerous, so that's why they call it polar bear hunting, because they know whites have the potential to be dangerous, but they've never actually seen whites being dangerous, because all of whites, the very white European concept of being dangerous now is defensiveness. So everything regarding danger has to be being on the defensive. And the problem with this is, Searun wrote extensively about this. You can't have a defensive mindset and get anywhere in life. You have to have an offensive mindset. In other words, it's the difference between saying we're going to hold this ground or we're going to take new ground, which was, the white race. Once it gave up slavery, that was about it for the white race, because not to say the white race handled slavery well, because they were getting into the miscegenation and creating a race of resentful mulattoes like Frederick Douglass that basically caused them a lot of problems that they wouldn't have had if they kept all the black Africans black. But no, they had to create as many mulattoes as they could, because they were easier to handle for a while, and make that arrangement. But long term, there was major problems by breeding all those mulattoes. So had they not created all those mulattoes, the slaves would have been much easier to manage. At first, they might have said, "Oh, look at these savages; they're so hard to manage." But it's just a clear case of making it easy for yourself in the long term or the short term. And in the long term, it would have been easier not to miscegenate with all the slaves, not to miscegenate with any of the lesser races. But the white man doing the right thing. Again, it goes back to how full of themselves they are, and this is what happens in the predator's mindset. And it happened to the big cats too. They get full of themselves. The idea of the cat, right now is very interesting, because the cat. There's a cat, within a few miles of here right now. I don't know which direction, but there is a cat a few miles of here, and the cat's figured out. I can stampede a large mother animal, be it a cow or a horse, and I can't kill them because I've never thought about killing one of them big animals, but I can stampede them right after they give birth, and then I can eat their newborn, and it's pretty nice. It tastes good, it's warm, it's a hot meal, pretty good deal. And so that's what they do, and that makes them more full of themselves, and they do it again and again, and raising the ire of the animal's owner. So that's what happens, and that's how they get full of themselves. And just to give you a brief view of how overall animals get full of themselves as predators, and you can imagine how they got full of themselves back in the day. After a human, you take down a human, and that's a big deal. This guy shot your kin a while back with a gun, and you managed to surprise him and kill him. That makes you pretty full of yourself as an animal in a time when everything is more evolved. Animals and humans were more evolved 100 years ago. And, because the animals had to deal with a smarter man, because this man was out there fighting with the elements, he was sharper, his senses were sharper, and so forth and so on. They were living closer to their environment, and so you can imagine the level of animal he was dealing with. They were more sharp as well, having to deal with that world. So anyway, that's what's happened to the white race for the most part. And I thought it was very interesting to compare the white race with the big cat, because soon they're both going to be legends to an extent, but they're still going to exist. So it's hard to imagine that they make a comeback. I would like to see them make a comeback in a big way. I don't know if they will, but that would be cool. I'm all for it as a big cat hunter.